Weekly episode. With me today is Aquas of STG Weekly fame. Welcome to the show.
Hey, yep, glad to be here.
So first off, I was kind of curious to ask you, does it feel weird going from being the host to being a guest on a show?
Oh, as far as being a guest on your show, yeah, I mean, that's kind of fun. Like, you're doing the mic checks. I'm like, yep, I do that. I do that in STG Weekly, too. It's the whole dealio, I guess. But it's cool. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and so what I wanted to start with is kind of just learn more about kind of the early days of how STG Weekly came together and what motivated you to start the show.
Okay, yeah, I can answer that. I believe it was Sunfest 2012 that received some coverage on the Shmups forum, and this is before STG Weekly began, obviously. Yeah, there was, I think it was Prometheus, one of the members. I believe he had released some coverage of the event on the Shmups forum. The thread is probably archived somewhere because everything is archived on that forum.
Mm-hmm.
But he just showed some coverage and talked about, or rather, they had the Shmups. They had some Shmup demonstrations going on, and I don't know if that was the first year they did that. It might have been the second year, but essentially, like, he showed us that there was an audience at Stunfest that was actually being captivated by spectating Shmups, just your attendees of the event who are watching, who are like kind of at that area of the venue. And he actually showed like some of the, you could even see in the video he had posted, like some of the expressions of the people like watching. I believe it was Prometheus. He did Guwange run, and he also did Dodonpatch run, I think were the games.
Mm-hmm.
He showed those, and he basically kind of conveyed on the forum that, you know, people are they can be interested in this genre because it's so simple. Like, it's almost like a fighting game. Like, you have a fighting game, you got your two characters, you can clearly tell they're fighting. In a shmup, you have the ship and you have everything else being blown up. So it's like, that's a really kind of like a raw form of, it's a pure type of gameplay, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so basically I saw that, and there was kind of like some stirring on that thread, kind of just like people being excited that shmups were being represented in the West at the Sunfest venue. And of course, Sunfest usually takes place in Rennes, France.
Right.
But still considered the West. So it was basically like, oh yeah, we're, you know, people, you know, they're actually into this, like your average person, because there's just this huge stigma of, you know, people who are into shmups are elitists and stuff, and some of them are, some of them aren't. And, it was just, you know, it was just nice to see, you know, kind of people enjoying it. So yeah, there was a bit of a stir there, and people are kind of like, well, you know, maybe we should try to hype this up a little bit more on the English side of things. And basically someone had to step up and do it, and I was that person. So just kind of out of nowhere, after that stir had occurred a little bit later, I just decided to do the first episode of STG Weekly kind of on a whim on its own Twitch channel. And this was at the December of 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Covered Gradius 4, featuring Alamone's replay, and Frenetic, who is the co-founder of STG Weekly. He kind of came on with me and talked about Alamone's replay because he actually is local to Alamone as well. So he actually had something more to say there, and I didn't even know at that time how involved he would want to get into the show. But he was initially extremely excited, actually, probably more excited than I was about just the fact
That's awesome.
Just the fact that we were doing it. So he was really happy about that. And in fact, he had probably already been doing some shmup meets himself. Like I say, I think he was local to Alamone in California.
Mm-hmm.
So then we did the first episode, and it was just really makeshift, just do it and get it started. And that's how it began. And just not very long afterwards, we'd get the crazy Mushihime-sama Futari episode with Gus.
Yeah, that's the second episode, right?
Yeah, or it's like second or fourth or one. I think one of the first ones, and there was just some weird shit going on. I mean, it was just because it was just, you know, just doing it because we could, essentially. And that really, like, one of the big things was just the fact that Twitch was actually becoming more popular. Kind of Ustream was getting phased out around that time. and people are starting to stream on Twitch. I don't remember the exact history when went from Ustream to Twitch, but that was like a big thing because I don't have really any editing skills for the most part. But Twitch allowed me to produce content in a very streamlined manner, and that's exactly what I like to do. And I still continue to do the episodes with very minimal effort of editing.
Oh, nice. The dream.
I'm just kind of one of those people that maybe it's lack of ambition, but I just like things if they work and they're simple, like I'll do them and I'll stick to my method. Like that's just kind of how I like to do things. Might be laziness, but at least we've got the show going and people seem to enjoy it. It makes me happy to hear that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Sometimes, even with this podcast, I was a little bit weary to upgrade my equipment and things like that, just because sometimes there's like a lo-fi charm to certain things and a special feel that certain things have. So I know what you're saying, where maybe if you change the format of the show too much, it wouldn't feel the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was the concern necessarily, but it just worked the best that way.
So before STG Weekly was around, was there any video content similar for Shmups, or were you guys the very first?
I'm guessing that there was. I mean, I don't really follow like YouTube communities and I don't really watch a lot of YouTube videos about various gaming content, just a few specific channels, honestly. Which always actually humbles me too when people actually say they watch our show. They're like, "Oh, it's like the only thing I watch on YouTube." It's like, holy fuck! It's like you're like me almost. Just like watch like only a couple things. Or was I going to get to that? Or what was the question again?
I was asking, prior to STG Weekly, was there any regular video content for Shmups that you were aware of?
Right. Yeah. So I'm guessing that there was, just some channels that were talking about Shmups, but nothing that was analyzing a high level gameplay or anything like that. I mean, I have no idea. Maybe there was, but I'm kind of doubting it at this moment.
Yeah, I've been looking and I haven't really been able to find much.
Oh, okay.
As far as that.
Looked, okay, so yeah. I mean, there's a channel, Studio Mudprint. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, I do.
I'm not sure when he began, but he was kind of alongside STG Weekly, and he's been producing shmup content for a long time. Not necessarily focusing on like replays or anything, but I think he's been a pretty big proponent of shmups throughout the years as well, and so like been trying to kind of promote each other as well. That's really all I can think of.
Yeah, I've followed his channel for quite a long time as well. And yeah, it's good because, especially these days, it's kind of hard to find reliable reviews for shmups from people who actually are kind of more interested in the genre. Whereas if you watch general gaming media when they cover shmups, they don't have a whole lot to say other than...
Yeah, often glossed over typically.
Yes, it's like, well, the graphics look pretty cool. You're blowing shit up. That's all we got so far.
They never really talk about like their journey to one credit clearing or like or anything like that. When that's the best part.
Yeah, no kidding.
To me, anyway.
I think so as well. So when you guys were starting STG Weekly, what were some of your early goals?
Yeah, so it was really all about kind of tapping into the community. Because we had the Shmups forum, so we had the resource of the community to try to bring in various people who are active and try to basically put a face to playing Shmups on a more serious level.
Right.
Because that was really like the stigma is, it still is. People think that the games are too hard and they don't want to invest the time. And I don't think people even understood. General populace doesn't really understand that they can be, played repeatedly for fun and then ultimately mastered. But the fact that people will come onto the show and talk about that, it's evidence that people do enjoy the games on a different level than, just kind of 3 credits through game over type of gameplay. To put it kind of frankly, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge hurdle that I found when I recommend, certain shmups to my friends and stuff. Who aren't really into shmups that much, they'll kind of just, like you say, kind of quarter feed their way through it and be like, that was all right.
Yeah, it
That's
really
the shmup to them.
Yeah, it's like I think everyone has this moment where there's a spark where they finally get it, like they get the genre. And for me, like
Hmm.
that was Riding Fighter's Jet. I was in an arcade in 2011 in a bowling arcade type of place. It was a place called Flaherty's, and they had
Hmm.
an arcade with like DDR and Soul Calibur that my friends would play Magic the Gathering as well. But they also had Riding Fighter's Jet, and there were players of the game. And I watched them because shmups, they're cool, they're awesome,
Yeah, definitely entertaining to watch.
So they're cool. Yeah, it's like Ryan Ferris Jet's really flashy and stuff. And I was like, I took notice that people were playing, an old school style game like that, and actually they were actually doing scoring tricks, and I noticed that. And when I noticed that, like it blew my mind, like because I never really realized that the games could be played on a deeper level than just shooting all the enemies to get a high score. But in Ryan Fighter's Jet, you're doing scoring tricks. You're doing in the first stage. You're building up the medal chain,
Hmm.
and you're ultimately grabbing the big ass purple medal. And you grab the big ass purple medal, and that activates the real medals in the next stage, which you actually start collecting for score. And without seeing those players at the arcade who knew how to do that, I never would have got into it. So
That's something I've been kind of thinking about as far as the shmup community goes, is because I had the same moment with fighting games in around 2009 where I always liked them, but then I went to a local tournament and saw people live, playing like madmen. And
mhm.
it really got me fired up into the genre. And that's really cool that you had that hands on experience of seeing players who play the game seriously in person. And that kind of sparked your interest.
It really did, and I became obsessed basically from that point, and I think a lot of people do. And once they get that spark, I would spend some days in the arcade for like basically all day, for 6 to 8 hours. I'd play Ryan Fighter's Jet, and I was like, I couldn't stop playing it. Like it was just so awesome.
And plus, in arcades, it's really fun because there's that public feeling and that sense of accomplishment when you get the high score on the cabinet,
Yeah,
and you come back a week later and your score is still there. That's super cool.
and there was that, and basically like through my tenure at that arcade, eventually I finally end up like taking like all the Master of Ships high scores except for one, and that was the slave score on the machine. And if you know Ryan Fire's Jet, you know that the slave ship is a secret ship that's very tiny and has a lot of firepower. Then eventually, much later on, there was a shooting game tournament on the Shmups forum, and I eventually beat that slave score. So I was like, I finally conquered my arcade Ryan Fire's Jet scores, and because the guy there, one of the guys there, had 106 million score, pretty decent for Ryan Fire's Jet, to be quite honest.
Yeah, especially defined just in your local community. I bet that's pretty unusual.
And it was a group of people that were playing it, and so they were doing the thing where they were sharing strategies and watching each other and that type of thing. And
Yeah.
it was funny sometimes, like this group, like I'd be there, I'd be kind of like the newbie almost, and I'd be watching them, and then like they would fuck up like two stages in and just abandon the machine. I was like, all right, I'll play. So like I'll just like play like their abandoned credits and stuff. Like
Oh, that's
they're
funny.
like abandoning their runs because they're getting the reset syndrome going on, because that game does do that. But I was surprised they were even doing that after paying money. I don't know. It surprised me at the time. I was like, all right, I'll play out your credit.
Yeah. Just growing up for me, that was one of my arcade no-nos. You never abandon the credit.
Really? Okay.
Just for me, because I wasn't a serious arcade player or anything, but I'd only have $5 and I had to make that last a few hours. And so, yeah, I definitely tried to maximize those coins as much as possible.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But those guys, I think they had gotten competitive at that point. So once they
Right.
knew they couldn't beat each other's scores, they were just giving up. And then I was going in and like honing my skills a little bit off their partial credits. Funny.
Yeah, that is funny. Were there any other shmups in that arcade or near your area that you got into?
No, like that was it. That was it. The arcade, like I said, they had Soul Calibur 2, and then eventually had Soul Calibur 3, and it had DDR Supernova, and we all played DDR, and then they had some pinballs, and they had the one. Then they had the one Fighter's Jet machine. Eventually, they actually did upgrade the Ryan Fighter's Jet cab. It was one of those cabinets that's like has that big gap in between the control panel and the like monitor, and like the monitor's like really big, and then like the gap, like you can walk between the gap. I don't know if you've seen a cabinet like
Oh,
that.
yes, I've seen those. Yeah. Almost like a driving car cabinet, right?
Kinda, yeah, except you stand up. It was still like stand up controls.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they actually upgraded the Ryan Ferris jet to like this like Uber cabinet. I guess they must have noticed like the game was getting a lot of quarters and stuff. It's like there was one point where they actually like Ryan Ferris jet was like the thing in the arcade, and I actually I wasn't into the game actually at that point. That was actually before I had truly gotten into it.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually downgraded it. I guess it might have been more popular at a certain point. But I remember, yeah, they actually had upgraded it. But besides that, I didn't really run into shmups in an arcade setting really at all for the most part. I'd see 1943 or whatever, 1942.
Yeah.
And that's not a very impressive game at all.
No.
It's kind of shitty and not fun.
I was about to mention, at my local arcade, the only two shmups were Raiden 2 and 1943.
Okay, well, Raiden 2 is badass, and then 1940. Well, 1943 is cool too. That's the better one, right?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That's the one we actually just covered on STG Weekly.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's the kind of like the more 16-bit looking one, right?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, that's not too bad. And then Raiden 2, I mean, that game will kick your ass.
Yeah, well, especially when you're 12 years old, that game was brutal.
Yeah, I bet it looked amazing.
Oh yeah, the laser, the fully powered... One reason I played that game is just to get the fully powered lasers and just go crazy with them.
Yes.
So in those early days of recording STG Weekly, what was your recording process like?
We used Skype because Discord didn't exist to
Right.
communicate. So that was okay for the most part. I mean, Skype was okay. It worked. I would just wrangle up people, just private messaging them on the forum, essentially. That was the best way to contact people at that point. And, hopefully I would get a reply and I'd wrangle them in and just get a schedule, and then I would add them on Skype, and then just, we'd do our thing. And like I say, it was set up very, very straightforward and simply.
Yeah.
So we could just put out the episodes, and eventually the quality would go up very gradually over time. Now it's plateaued now.
What were the things that you felt were improving the quality of the show? What aspects were kind of improving over time?
I never had a concrete format for the show, so I like, as you may know, I like we have episodes that are focused on high level gameplay, and we also have episodes that are just people and friends just enjoying the games and not even thinking about that stuff.
Right.
So that spectrum, I just liked to enjoy the games in a variety of ways, because something I always kept in mind from the very beginning was the point of the show was I wanted people to get into the genre. And so I still keep that in mind, even though our audience is the people who are mostly playing the games, not the people who aren't playing the games. I still want, I always wanted it to be something that a new player could be pointed to, and it would still be at least somewhat approachable and understandable, not like, what is this madness? Like, what are they talking about? Even still, I like to, during the episodes, I still like to just reiterate certain points that are kind of like, that have been well established throughout the episodes just for new people. But I mean, yeah, it's just like, from the beginning, it was just kind of just going off feel for the most part and seeing what kind of episode we were going to form, and it would depend on what kind of content we had. If we had the players and who would come on, and if their run was really like high level or not, and then it was just, we couldn't get people every week, so then that's kind of where the more fun type of episodes would come out, where I had some episodes where I just did like live play on my own, and then we did some episodes where we were just talked. And so then I never wanted it to be, solely just guide after guide after guide
Right,
after guide
right.
of shmups. Like, that's not really what I'm about. Like, I love video games, so I want people to love them and not feel, claustrophobic from all the stuff that goes with clearing the games and whatnot, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, probably as a content creator too, that would be really tiring to do just high-level analysis episode after episode after episode.
Yeah, it gets exhausting.
Yeah.
It really does, especially those Toho episodes. Those are those are so hard to actually get a grasp on. It's just incredible, like how many facets of scoring is going on in those games. And then if you're not used to the Toho scoring systems, it can be incredibly overwhelming. And so it's just nice to step back, especially from some of those games where the scoring systems are so involved and have so many different facets to them. It was just always nice to step back and just enjoy the games in a little bit more simple fashion. And during those solo episodes too, I always try to boil it down or make sure that I'm following along and all that.
Well, I can tell you, just as a viewer of your show, a few years ago when I was getting into shmups, just kind of out of nowhere, STG Weekly was one of the main things I watched, and like I started playing Dodonpachi and DOJ and, a lot of the cave ones, and pretty much have watched all your cave episodes at this point and found them super helpful.
Oh, great to hear. It's always happy to hear that people are, actually, they're getting something out of those episodes. Because, I mean, it is a niche genre, it's a niche channel, and still, still it hasn't really, blown up or anything like that. Obviously, it's just still kind of just a thing that's there. And I don't know, maybe we can touch on this later, but like, I feel like I've almost accomplished kind of the goal of the show at this point. It's kind of part of the reason why the episodes have slowed down. I feel like we have all these episodes of the different games, and if anyone is interested in shmups, they're gonna find the channel.
Oh yeah, right away.
And they're gonna see what's this STG Weekly episode, like 100 episodes. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And they're gonna see that people take the game seriously, and that's really one of my main goals, is just so that people, if they're curious, they're going to find it, and then they're going to find out that the games are more in-depth than they may have imagined, or there's more to enjoy about them than they may have thought. So that's really one of the main, that was I think one of my main goals of the show, and I feel like I've accomplished it. There's still plenty of games, there's still plenty of people, and the community it's growing still. So I think we're gonna still be doing episodes, and we still are. It's just my motivation has gone down a little bit over the years. I mean, the show has been going on for 5 years now.
I know, man. That is,
so it's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's an incredible feat. If this podcast goes 5 years, that would be a miracle on 34th Street. So I have to definitely commend you guys for putting out so much content and keeping at it for so long. That's, I think, an amazing accomplishment.
Well, I mean, and then like the jokes, obviously the jokes came inside STG Weekly. We were doing like maybe one episode a month. They've one summer we didn't do hardly anything, and I was okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, you need to take breaks.
Yeah,
it's impossible to be a content creating machine. It's just impossible.
Yeah, and I never like to force. Like, one of my main things too is I never want to force an episode. I want to be there because I want to be there. I want to talk about or talk to people when I feel like it's a good time to talk to them. Because the enjoyment of the genre, it is real, and I don't want that to come across as superficial as some YouTube channels can. Some of the YouTube content creators can come across as superficial in some regard. So we're legit gamers, and I always wanted that to come across, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
No, I think that really does come across when you watch STG Weekly, that you guys have a passion for the games, and you play them seriously, but you don't take yourselves really seriously. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean that kind of, I think that might go with just the fact that, they're personal pursuits for the most part. Everyone can pursue their little mini goals and stuff in their own way, and everyone does do it in their own way. Whether they're just trying to clear a game on 1 credit or 3 credits, or just get through it.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah, and I think over time, too, people's goals will start to, escalate, where, for me, at first, just clearing a game was enough. And then once I got the clear, there's, a little itch. It's like, well, maybe I should start trying to improve my score or get through the second loop or whatever, so...
That's when it's a good game.
Yeah, exactly.
When you want to keep playing it, for sure. Well, it's like you end up investing so much time that it's like sometimes it's the end. Sometimes you want to keep going.
Yeah.
It really depends on the game and how you feel and all that.
So as far as, you've been doing STG Weekly for 5 or 6 years now, and I'm curious to hear over that span of time how the shmup community has kind of maybe expanded and then maybe gone up and down, up and down. Has there been, or would you say it's more of a steady presence?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
There are people coming in and they're getting into it, but it's always seemed like it's been the same kind of ebb and flow.
Right.
Just kind of gradually gaining speed, kind of gradually building. Kind of just as time goes on. I mean, that's kind of just natural as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find more people. Yeah, I don't know. I guess not exactly sure how to answer that, I suppose.
Maybe it was kind of a convoluted question. I'll try to make it a little simpler. I guess, was there ever a point in the past 6 years where there was a noticeable spike in players? Maybe like around the 360 days? I know a lot of people got into shmups around then.
Yeah, definitely. 2009 was a great year. I mean, let's see here. 2009, that's when Mushimi Sama Futari came out. There was so much hype when all those region-free cave games were coming out. I believe, that was before STG Weekly was created. But I think that was a really fun time, I think. And I think a lot of people were kind of, well, at least on the forum, I mean, we were getting excited because the games were region-free. It was like finally like, we were being noticed, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it felt like. Like, we were being, like, shmup players, I think we felt like we were being acknowledged with the region-free releases by the developers and stuff. And that was kind of a big turning point, I feel like. Because, I mean, when you first see a cave game, like, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I remember when I first saw, like, Mushimi Sama on the PS2 and I started playing that, like, it blew my mind because I didn't realize that there were still developers making 2D games at such a really high fidelity that Cave was. That blew my mind because I really didn't think like that was still a thing really around that era of like 2008, 2009, I guess.
Right, exactly.
So like it was crazy, and I think that the fact that Cave's games are so incredibly detailed and they have great soundtracks, like they do their best to really impress the average person, I think.
And the sprite work's fantastic. The visuals are amazing.
When those Cave games started coming out, I think that was a big thing. As far as like while STG Weekly was existing and like there being a spike, I mean, it feels like it's always been kind of steady for the most part. Yeah, I guess I'd have to stick with that answer.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, there's been there's been the events like the Stunfest and that type of thing, and people like do the shmup meets and too on the forum, and I got to know a group of people in Minnesota who basically became the shmup crew here, and
nice.
That was like a really cool moment for me. It was because it was a Neo Geo forum gathering, but one of the members also cross posted it on the Shmups forum. And it was just this one summer, and I took a bus out to this place to meet all these people, and they ended up, a lot of them just ended up becoming really good friends and stuff. And it was just like, they were like, holy shit, this guy actually, he's actually good. Because I got there and I cleared, I was like clearing I cleared like Mushimi 1.5 max. Blow
their minds a little bit.
It's like you should come by, and hang out with us. And like, hell yeah. Because like it was our group. A lot of them were, I mean, they were like shmup enthusiasts, but they picked up that I was like a legit player right away. And it's just like there's an interesting connection there when you have people that just kind of get that, I guess. I don't know. I might be sounding elitist here, but it's hard not to with the shmups. But
it's hard not to.
Kind of what it was like, though.
It's kind of hard not to because there's like this.
It's like if you're into fighting games, like
yes, exactly.
It's a similar parallel. Like if you're into them, you're really into them. If you're not, you're casual.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I had an experience like that with a fighting game. I went to a dorm, like a college party dorm, and they had a Street Fighter 4, and I played it pretty not super seriously, but somewhat seriously back in the day, and I ended up just, beasting people in it, and I know the feeling. It's kind of exciting. You feel kind of a little bit like a nerd because you're so good at the game, but
Yeah, then people, yeah, and it's like if you're the only one that's good, then people oust you a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
Be like, oh, look at this guy, he's fucking, he's too good. It's all, gang up on him. It's like back in the day, like I was playing GoldenEye like with neighborhood friends, and like I got really fucking good at that, and they like all team up on me, like and whatnot, like and like people do that in Smash Brothers, and like when I remember playing Puyo Tetris in recent years. I'm not good at that, but in that game you can do 3 versus 1, and the one of 4 of us, the one guy he could actually play Puyo, and the other 3 of us were doing the Tetris side,
Yeah.
and we're just like, get this guy, get this guy.
Trying to dogpile him. That's so.
He's still beating us. Like that. It's kind of like funny. I don't know. I always find that to be interesting. That there's that kind of reaction.
Yeah. Especially with shmups, it's really rare to see someone play them at a high level in person. So I'm sure to just see someone doing that must be impressive and a little intimidating.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me too. Like when I was getting into fighting games too, like I would actually occasionally like bring a shmup to the casuals and just show them, that the games exist, and people are interested.
Yeah.
When they see that stuff for the first time. It's cool.
I was thinking of doing the same thing with my friends and stuff. Because there's a fighting game community here, but there's no shmup community whatsoever. So basically my only avenue is in person is just to try and convert my existing fighting game community friends into playing shmups a little more.
And sometimes that's what it's like. You just have to put something in front of someone.
Uh-huh.
And that's like the best way to expose them.
Right, exactly.
I was like, I'm just gonna bring this there and I'm gonna play it and see what the reaction is. And it's kind of, I think that's kind of like an approach that we ended up taking with Frenetic and Soft Drink and Trap doing their the STG Weekly panels for various expos, and it was really just about just getting it at these expos and letting people know that it's a thing.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. One idea I had, I'm not saying I'm doing it this year, but maybe in future years, is having shmup players kind of in my area go to Evo and have like a little side event at Evo. We're not part of Evo, but we're all there for Evo, and then also kind of get together and play shmups and try and invite people at the event.
It's definitely possible. I think Frenetic has been trying to do that, actually. In fact, at one point, he tries to just infiltrate shmup setups or like STG Weekly stuff into the fighting game events, and I think he's even been like turned down very bluntly.
Yes.
Like, sorry, this is a fighting game event, not for your games and stuff. But like Frenetic's whole, like if he was here, he'd go on a tangent too. Maybe we could talk to him at some point, but like his whole thing is just do it, pretty much.
Yeah, because sometimes the red tape is too much, and you just gotta
or just try to get out there, no matter yeah. I guess no matter if it's like if there's backlash.
Yeah, I think Frenetic and I probably have a similar viewpoint.
He's definitely like that.
Because sometimes when you end up crashing the party, you end up becoming the life of the party, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an idea. I mean, they do have like, I mean, as I understand, Evo does have those side areas,
side tournaments
for
games and stuff.
Maybe not necessarily for non-fighting games, but maybe they should be open to that, and maybe other arcade games or other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fighting games are arcade games.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, I think it's not a bad idea for Evo to think about. I don't know, embracing that culture, like maybe a little bit more. Right. I mean, I'm sure they do. I mean, I'm sure people are playing like some random shit there.
Yeah, and I've heard that Evo's starting to sell almost more spectator passes than competitor passes.
Oh, okay.
The spectators need something to do, right? Might as well have some shmup stuff there. Or for the people who get eliminated their first day and they didn't want to go home.
Yeah, it's like a lot of the time, too. It's like it is at those events, that people are seeing those games for the first time. And there's probably at least one person who's walking away who's just like, holy fuck, I gotta play like Dodonpachi Resurrection or something.
Yeah.
And that's really all we want with STG Weekly and stuff, is just building these individuals. Like, it doesn't even matter about lots of people, just individual by individual, because everyone, if people can go on their own journeys and have the will to do that with the games and have a fun time, then I think the show is, and just the fact that we're trying to expose the games, I think it's becoming successful at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, who knows? I mean, that one person could be, I don't know, they could be a super player of some game, or I mean, they could go on to really getting into something else. I don't know. That's kind of how I feel, I guess.
Also, it could be kind of a pay it forward type situation where that one person gets interested and manages to kind of expose it to more people and so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I say, I mean, people know who are probably listening to this, like they know that the shmup bug exists.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. It's just a matter of people finding the game that is appealing to them and then keep playing it, I think. And that's like the best. That's another thing about the variety of episodes and the variety of games is, it really is about finding the right game for you and the one that's the right difficulty level and the one that's appealing to you and the one that's not too hard. I just said that. And then sticking with that, for me, it was Ryan Fighter's Jet. And then I found a couple other games that I really enjoyed, like Mushimi Sama was the one early on that I really got into. And there's a lot, as you know, there's so many great shmups out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's countless of them because they were the golden era of arcades pre Street Fighter 2.
Exactly.
There's just so much awesome stuff. Like, oh my god! Like recently, I got into playing Eco Fighters, Capcom shmup from 1994. Oh my god, that game was amazing. Apparently, it was Capcom's last big shmup effort, and it's amazing. They held a theme contest in Japan for what type of arcade shmup they're going to make, and an individual won the contest with the theme of saving the environment.
That's cool.
So the game's about taking down this fucking Go-Yoke, this fucking fat ass guy who's just like tapping the resources of various planets, and you end up just fucking him up and all that. And I like that theme because
that's a great theme.
It's a great theme, and to save the environment, of course, you must destroy the environment and everything else that goes with it. But it was still a nice sentiment. I really enjoyed that one. But like, there's just so much stuff out there, and people, you can find something you like, I guess.
Yeah, and I think one roadblock, I feel, this is my own thoughts, this could be completely inaccurate, but I think one roadblock for shmups is that there are a lot of gamers who experienced kind of mediocre shmups, maybe when they're younger, on console, and then they assume that the rest of the genre is like that one kind of mediocre shmup they played, and they have no idea about like the cave games or any of those really excellent shmups.
Yeah, the classic. Like, oh, is this a ride-in type? Is this like a ride-in type game? Or like,
yeah.
Is this like Galaga? It's like, is this like Galaga and you're playing like Mushimi? It's like, or a Toho. Toho is people compare it to Toho too and whatnot. It's like, all right, well, I'll try not to be rude when people say stuff like that.
Well, it's not Galaga because you can move up, down, left, and right, not just left and right.
The fact is they're trying to relate. So
yeah,
you don't want to be mean to people. But I've heard that so many times.
That's funny.
Like the generalization. Yeah, there's some truth to that.
So, in your time doing STG Weekly, are there a few episodes or moments that really stand out to you as being some of your favorites?
There's some, for sure. I had like a little list of them recently for another interview I did, but I don't know, one of my favorites was episode 50 when Frenetic somehow got, I think her name was Kyrie, and she was a former employee of Access Games, and she was actually responsible for helping with the localization of Death Smiles by Axis.
That's really cool.
And it turned out that she was the creator of the phrase "Death smiles at us all," or "Lollies smile back."
Really?
Or whatever it was in the back of the Death Smiles box. Mentioning explicitly like the word lollies, but it's referring to gothic Lolita fashion.
Yeah.
It's still awkward. It still was an awkward choice, but I think that was one of my favorite episodes when we actually talked to her, and she ended up kind of revealing that working at Axis Games was more stressful and weird than she may have expected. She was talking about she was comparing it to like a high school environment and
oh geez,
and this kind of stuff, and it was interesting, really interesting. But so there's some highlight moments like that, and I don't know, there's all sorts of little moments.
One that I wanted to ask you about, just kind of doing some research, and I saw that you did a Bat Rider demonstration at Stunfest in 2015, right?
I did, yes.
That looked really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
How was that experience?
That run in the beginning was incredibly close to collapsing in the second stage. I was a little. They had the initial nerves, and then eventually I was able to get the run going. That's a really unmarathon safe game.
Yes. Eaglet said that it was extremely unmarathon safe.
It is, because you have to follow a route and you have to meet score quotas constantly to stay on your route for getting the next character, and you need a certain character alive to trigger a certain boss. You need the boss to get the score. You need the score to get the trigger.
Oh,
the score to get the nut. It's an endless loop of conditions, and it's honestly, it drives me insane playing it. That was a tough run to do. You know, I did a lot of preparation and whatnot so that I could hopefully get that run going. It is like that run is like that. Eventually, it did turn out. I was very satisfied with how it turned out in the end.
Super impressive watching it. And so, did you fly out to France and everything? I'm assuming, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, I was actually invited by the festival, and so they paid for my air flight to go and demonstrate, and that was the only way I was going to be able to attend and do that. That was like a once in a lifetime kind of moment for me at that moment. I don't know if that's ever going to happen for me again or what, but that was an extreme honor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just super grateful that actually got to happen and actually went to France and everything. Like, I'd never been there before. I had been to Europe when I was in high school before, but that was just for a school trip. Not like I got to really spend much time enjoying France or anything, but I mean, yeah, it's just it was mind blowing that my gameplay was actually able to bring me there.
I know.
I still can't really get over that.
You're like a shmup celebrity right there.
Yeah, I mean, I still consider that one of my highlight moments in my shmup career. But Bat Rider is it's an insane game. It has a lot of lag and MAME.
Oh, does it?
So I can play in MAME and potentially get a new PB or whatever, but it's just it's rough. It's rough. It's just a little too laggy, and I've played on the PCB enough to be spoiled by it.
Yeah.
By the good input lag, and it's just it's frustrating because if the environment isn't, I think Eagle was mentioning it too on the previous podcast, like if everything isn't you want to play on the PCB is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
If you have something to blame on, it's just not going to be a good look. And
yeah,
Bat Rider already has like a bajillion things you need to be thinking about. So I'm adding some lag on top of that. It's just I don't know if I'm going to be able to commit to that until the M2.
Yeah, I was about to say, come on, M2.
It'll come out. It's going to take some time. I'm optimistic, but when that comes out, I'll get a PS4 and I'll come back to it. It's just this incredibly stressful game.
Yeah, that Grega port they made is excellent. I was very impressed by, the save state features, all the, features you can do. You can reduce the input lag. Just amazing.
Yeah, it's great. M2 is awesome for doing those. It's crazy that they keep doing them, but it's just one of those things where it's like, they're just as much fans as we are as players, fans of the games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get that impression.
As they are as developers or porters and whatnot. So yeah, it's just like, it's super nice. Maybe they're not making not making big bucks or anything, but they are growing the genre still.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to see how their reception is in Japan versus the Western world, if there's more interest in their ports in Japan or if the Western world has just as much.
Yeah, Japan has the arcades. I think the players do tend to prefer
just playing on arcade.
The arcade scenario, but the ports certainly are probably appreciated, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially for getting your honing your skills at home and then going to the arcade. So I'm sure they're well appreciated.
Right, save states too.
Still makes me sad that just no one plays Muchi Muchi Pork 1.01. Except for one guy, the world record.
I spoke with Cloudy Music, and he was saying that you have an insanely good record in that game.
Well, I don't have a world record. Well, actually, I have a character record, but I don't have the world record. But it's the 1.01 mode on the port,
right?
Which I think is the more balanced version of the game, and more fun version. But it's just the Japanese players don't consider it worthwhile to pursue playing exactly sure why, because it really makes it more fun. So, but I mean, that's really all that matters for me. So I continue to play it and whatnot. Been playing that one for about 2 years now, and it's still fun. That game ended up being one of my favorites, I think.
Yeah, like you said, that is a shame. I think it might just come down to just, arcades are the official version in some people's minds.
Yeah,
No matter even if you improve the game, the arcade is still the official version.
I think that might be it. And then I guess Muchi Pork wasn't really that successful
Oh,
in
okay.
general in arcades either, because well, one of the issues was that it has a bug where if you get to the second loop, if a player gets to the second loop, which requires a no death run, after that credit is done and they've been in the second loop, I believe what it was is that extends just don't trigger anymore on the machine.
Oh, geez.
It's just a really stupid bug. So like basically one player would get to the loop and then it would kind of ruin the machine for any of the other potentially like ambitious players. I think that's what it was. I might be remembering wrong, but it's something like that. I think they really should have released 1.01 version updated on the arcade.
Yeah.
It's just so much more lenient and fun, and I don't know. Maybe it'll be too easy on the arcade. I'm not sure, but it's just so much more balanced in my opinion. And you're using the large shot like so much more often and getting a lot more medals. Like it's just nice. Whereas compared to the original game, like you're doing a lot more you're focusing a lot more on kind of routing, whereas you can improv a lot more on the 1.01. That's really my style of game, is being able to improv and enjoy like the crazy patterns and just dodge them a certain
Yes.
way. Like I'm not a huge fan of routing out my games.
Right. It sounds like I kind of have a similar mentality too, where you like to have like a general route you're following and a general idea of what you're doing, but you're not really piece by piece just breaking the game down as
Yeah,
much as possible.
yeah. I just don't like to feel constricted like that. I don't know. It's just kind of how I feel, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I love the idea of like in Muchi Pork, like there are randomly placed enemies. There's a lot of RNG in the game, and that's really what kind of makes me come back, is that different experience each time,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of dealing with that and the excitement of a different run every time. Like that's much more exciting to me than a verbatim route and executing that, pulling it off.
Yeah.
But more power to the people who do enjoy that. It's super impressive. That the discipline it takes to come up with some of these routes is incredible.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, it's just, I mean, some of these people who have the routes, like they just know all their inputs and what they need, this, all these very specific things that they're doing, in these various places. But I like to take a more, I guess maybe a more casual approach,
Yeah.
while still enjoying in crazy patterns. Because Muchi Pork it just gets crazy.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have bombs in some of the sections in the second loop to even, you might have like a 5% chance of surviving this like section if you don't have resources.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like some runs you might not have those resources, and then you have to see if you can survive it. And then if you do, like it's fucking crazy. It's cool as fuck.
Yeah.
Oh my god! I had actually did a run like the other day, and it was one of the most intense runs I'd ever done in the game, and I hadn't played in like a few weeks, and it was just like that's how I know like the game is for me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when I just come and play it, and it's like it was the most intense thing that ever happened, and I haven't even been playing I don't know, I didn't need to be playing every day or anything like that. It's just I love Muchi Pork. It's so good. People really need to play it.
You got me convinced. I'm firing up the port right after this interview now.
Yes,
So,
you have the port.
yeah, I do.
That's great. I stream the game pretty frequently, and people like eventually may look up the prices because the price went up on the port.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I picked it up for like $40 on Play Asia when it was the best of version. But now that best of version goes for like $130.
Oh, that sucks.
So there's a bit of a point of entry there. Though I really respect people who do pick it up, and even if they don't get super into it like me, it's pretty respectable that they'd want to try it out. pay $130. But hey, just compare that to PCB prices, and
Yeah, there you go.
that's always the way to look at it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the other day I was looking at picking up some more imports and stuff like that, and the thought that came to my mind was this is rough because not only is there a wall as far as difficulty for newer players, now there's like a paywall for a lot of new players. If you want to recommend certain ports to them and stuff.
It can be, but now it's like we have stuff on Steam.
Yeah, that's true.
And whatnot. When Muchi Pork came out, didn't have any shmups on Steam. I mean, maybe Ikaruga was on there at that point. That was it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, climate has changed a little bit. I mean, the shmups coming on Steam was a big deal, the genre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we have a pretty good library on there. So when people ask me, like, what game should I be playing? And it's like, I can suggest Steam because everyone uses Steam.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, kick it!
Gears a little bit because not only are you an accomplished shmup player, but you also have quite a few excellent speedruns under your belt. And I think it's really interesting to hear your maybe your journey from playing shmups into speedrunning, or if you did speedrunning before playing shmups. How did that work?
So yeah, my story with getting into speedrunning is pretty similar to a lot of people. Games Done Quick events. I'm sure you're familiar with them, but they did a crazy. They got so speedrunning got so huge because of those events.
Massive.
That it was a huge exposure, and just the fact that people were taking the games to that next level and doing speedruns, that was incredibly appealing to me. And I was just a spectator originally of speedruns, and got me into it was the fact that I had started getting into playing arcade games in MAME and trying out various games, and eventually got around to trying Ghouls and Ghosts in MAME, and ended up becoming one of my favorite games of all time. I did many one credit clears and stuff like that. Kind of like the natural evolution is to speedrun a game after you've kind of beaten it and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, maybe I should try a speedrun of this out. And what really kicked it off for me was actually the sideshow of STG Weekly Awesome Game Replays. I believe it was actually the first or second episode where I invited one of the marquee speedrunners. His name's PJ DeCaesar, and he came on to the show, and he actually showed a concept speedrun route for Ghouls and Ghosts. And that really was kind of like the push I needed to really feel like this was something that I could like start doing. And like getting into shmups, getting into speedrunning can also be intimidating.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's just another discipline and whatnot. But yeah, that's kind of what really got me into it, and just the fact that I loved the Ghouls and Ghosts and wanted to experience that in a new way, and ended up spending quite a bit of time playing that. But yeah, it's kind of like my story how I got into it.
Yeah, and I believe you've done quite a few live demonstrations at GDQ and AGDQ, right? So what were those experiences like?
Yeah, so the first one was in fact Ghouls and Ghosts. That was Summer Games Done Quick 2015. So that was the first time I did a run there, and it was interesting. The first time playing in front of a audience like that is a little nerve-wracking, but
oh, I bet.
I seem to do okay with it. I think because having experienced streaming is a good way to kind of ease yourself into doing public performances. So I didn't really have a big issue. Not a huge issue with nerves or anything, but yeah, it was great to show that off and go to an event as well, because the STDQs actually, since 2015, they've taken place in Minnesota, which was where I live in the
Oh,
United
nice.
States. So that was just a great convenience for me to submit my run and then actually be able to attend. Otherwise, you have to make the trip or
Oh, I know.
or come up with the funds to attend the event, and that's always a bit of a struggle,
No kidding.
because it's one thing to get your run accepted, and then it's another thing to actually get there and stay and attend it and whatnot. I mean, it costs money.
Well, it adds up, if you fly in plus your
It's like they're not
hotel.
paying for everyone to get there. The runners, they do waive the registration fee for the event if you're a runner, but that's it. Like, once you're accepted, it's on you to get there and all that.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly rewarding and stuff, though, because the events are like, I mean, they're just like a huge gathering of people who just love games, because that's like a lot of it. That's what it is like they a lot of these people just wanted to find ways to replay their favorite games from their childhood, but like, because like so much of speedrunning is kind of like built in nostalgia.
Right.
People want to a lot of people do, like, like the revenge speed run, where they pick a game that they played a lot in their childhood, or like that kicked their ass in their childhood, and then they want to like get revenge on it. So, like, that idea of revenge is so, I think it's actually kind of universal, I think, with even shmups and that type of thing, like being able to conquer the game after it's conquered you. Like,
Yes.
that's incredibly rewarding, and it basically is revenge.
Right. I know.
As like vile as that sounds, like it is revenge, but it's gratifying. I mean, it's a game. It's not like you're revenging against a person for what they did to you or anything, but it's just the game, and then you're able to kind of hone it down.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge appeal that speedrunning has, even from a viewer's perspective, of even if people aren't quite motivated enough to do the speedrun themselves, they're definitely willing to see someone at AGDQ or GDQ just destroy that game from their childhood that they just couldn't seem to beat. Or
It's amazing how much it really caught on.
it's crazy.
Like, what if we lived in an alternate universe where shmups were actually like the GDQ?
Now you're talking my language, dude.
And then the speedrunners they have like Speedrun Weekly or something.
Yeah.
And they still have their 500 views or something.
That's what I was about to say and talk about, is kind of the comparison between the two scenes, because I would say around 2012 or so, my dates might be a little bit off, but I was really into fighting games back then. And I was listening to a podcast that had a person who was promoting, it's a speedrunning event, Smash the Record, I think it was.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a speedrunning / Super Smash Bros. Melee event. And they were kind of on there explaining what speedrunning is to these fighting game players. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, dude, whatever. And then now look at it now, how it's just exploded and it's this huge thing.
It's crazy. Yeah, like I still don't really understand how it blew up, but I think it's just still like nostalgia is a big part, because so many people. I mean, a lot of these speedruns are, they're retro games.
Yes.
And they've existed for many years, and because of that, they have people who know them. And I think it's taking a common game and then showing it in a different light. I think that maybe that's why it's actually extremely popular among,
I think you're right.
spectators. I mean, Super Metroid, for example, that's like one of the best games of all time, and turns out it's also one of the most like technical speedruns out there.
Right.
An incredible amount of different speed techniques you can do. My favorite is the damage boost that they do, like backwards, and they like fly across the room.
Yeah,
like, that
no
looks
kidding.
so fucking slick.
It is. It's hard to do that. It's funny is...
Okay, yeah, I never tried it myself.
Yeah, I actually... Okay, this might be a little bit of a tangent. Hopefully it'll remain in the episode, but before speedrunning became really popular, I've been trying to speedrun Super Metroid for years now, and just because it's my favorite game. Yeah, I learned all those advanced techniques like way back in the day, like mock balling, and because I wanted to get the timer really low, the in-game timer.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when speedrunning became more popular, I was considering submitting some of my old runs on this old I think it's called Deer Force leaderboards or something before speedrun.com. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's like the dedicated Super Metroid leaderboard or whatever.
And then when speedrunning popped off and I realized my run was actually shitty and slow and there's these insanely good players out there, it's just crazy.
Well, the nice thing is that to speedrun, you don't have to be great at it.
Yeah.
All you have to do is start timing yourself and try to beat your previous time. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah, very true.
And you can form your own, journey essentially doing that. Like, for example, me, like I like to speedrun Dark Souls, but I can only beat it in like 6 hours.
Right. Jeez.
Yeah, I can't seem to get under that on my own merit.
Yeah.
But yet the actual like speedrun is somewhere around 2 hours.
I know, it's crazy.
But regardless, like I still love to play through that game as fast as possible. And that's really all it is just enjoying it and building up your familiarity, just like with shmups and rhythm games and basically any skill improvement focused. This is the thing that ties all the games together.
Yes.
Is the fact that they're focused on improving your skill.
Like discipline and kind of even more analytical problem-solving type thought beyond just how to beat the game. Now you're taking it to the next level of trying to beat the game more quickly and finding things that the developers didn't want you to do or didn't think you could do.
Like for some people, it's not even the appeal of running the games. It's the appeal of finding the strategies and the techniques and finding out that, this is possible actually to save this amount of time. And for example, if you route out something that doesn't even have a speed run, like you're essentially pioneering the game and you're kind of unraveling. It almost feels like you're unraveling like the mysteries of the game. And maybe you could even compare that to shmups when you're getting more and more score. You're unraveling the scores, unraveling the points. Lately for me, like I became the world record for Contra Shattered Soldier, and I'm running that in the upcoming Summer Games Done Quick.
Oh, that's awesome.
I ended up taking the record, and the game just didn't have a optimized record originally. So it's been really interesting actually pioneering some of the strategies and being the first one to figure out, this is how you actually save time here. And like, that's incredibly exciting. It's like, it's like blazing your own trails.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think that's the thing that's appealing to a lot of people too in their shmup endeavors. What comes to mind for me is like, give a shout outs to my fellow pork man Dell. He was the first one to get a 2 all clear of the Mampuku mode in Muchi Muchi Pork. Only one. First one to do that. First one to ever do that. On the 1.01 mode, however, on the port, the Mampuku mode on the PCB, I think, is still uncleared by anyone. It's just so crazy. But since you get a lot more lenient resources, it's actually possible in 1.01. So Dell actually, he made a point of, he has YouTube videos and they're really cool actually. I actually like them. Where he goes on to talk almost philosophically about the merit of blazing your own trails and what that means, like in the grand scheme of things, personally and for other people.
I know exactly what you're saying because especially with things like some of these shmups, there's not a lot of other players in some of them, and you're putting in all these hours and effort into a game that maybe only a few people actually are that invested in and everything. So you do end up asking yourself those kinds of questions for sure.
Yeah, I love it. If you have a run that you're learning, but it's like well established, like Super Metroid or something, like you can be that guy who, takes all the info in at once and then just goes like, full shmup, full speedrun or whatever.
Yeah.
You can go that route, or you can just play it how you want to play it. just really up to personal preference. How you want to approach what you do, and maybe eventually, for me, like maybe eventually I'll learn the Dark Souls route, like for real, quote unquote.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But for now, I mean, I still have plenty of fun just kind of figuring it out on my own. I actually really like figuring out stuff on my own when it comes to shmups and scores and all that. Like it's just so much more gratifying than copying someone or having everything shown to you and spoiled. It's like spoilers.
Right, because there's a moment of discovery when you figure, holy shit, I can get a lot more points here. Or if I do this, I'm going to get a lot more points. Whereas someone just explains it to you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's just, if someone just shows you the route and you are able to just copy it, the points don't feel the same as if you did that route 400 times before, and then all of a sudden one day you figure out how to double your points or get a lot more points. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, it's all up to preference. Like, some people will, they'll go to some extent, like I say, to some extent to take those shortcuts and learn like, the nitty gritty details, and then others won't. Like, for example, right now I'm playing under defeat, and I just refuse to like look up info. I refuse to go to Shmups forum strategy section and look up info. Like, I know it will help me. I know I'll get better, but I'm still like the enjoyment of discovering.
Yeah, and it just makes it more fun too. It doesn't feel like a homework assignment as much as an adventure, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Like, you want to just be able to sit down and play the game sometimes.
So the big question I have that I think you have an excellent insight on, and I want to hear your thoughts, is it possible, as the speedrunning community just keeps getting bigger and bigger, that there'll come a point where shmups can kind of become some weird part of it in some way, where maybe parts of the speedrunning community will break off and start playing shmups, or is that never going to happen?
I mean, probably. Well, it's always been kind of my theory that, as the market has been saturated by the AAA titles, people will eventually get bored of the same stuff, maybe want to seek a challenge eventually. And, shmups are there, speedrunning is there. Maybe if people want to challenge themselves, they'll look towards speedrunning because that's kind of like it's in the public light more so than shmups are. But I've actually been kind of surprised that the speedrunning community hasn't taken more notice towards other skill-based genres. I do see speedrun players who do like other skill-based genres, but it's not widespread. It's still everything else is niche in comparison. I still think the nostalgia of speedrunning is just that strong. It really is. With those well-established titles, bringing everyone together, I think is really what it is. When you have shmups, that's just, I mean, not everyone knows UN Squadron, but they should. And if everyone knew how awesome UN Squadron is, maybe, more people would be playing UN Squadron or something. But yeah, it's actually surprised me. But I think also the speedrunning community gets used to going from project to project and game to game because speedrunning is it's their thing, like kind of like how shmups are our thing, going from 1cc to 1cc. There are speedrunners out there who are like, they go on the hunt for records and they go on the hunt for routing out games, and there's like the concept of like every game deserves a speedrun.
Yeah, I've heard about that. And like even really shit games and stuff.
Yeah, that can make a crappy game actually a good game. And that's a pretty compelling like method of gameplay that seems to have appealed to people.
feel like there's a certain type of gamer, and I feel like you and I kind of fit into this category of like a well-rounded, more Renaissance style gamer where this is more talking about how people specialize and then that's it. They don't want to do anything else. I feel like maybe there's a certain section of gamers that they'll play a shmup and then they'll speedrun, they'll play fighting games. And I feel like these days that's kind of going away where gamers have their thing and that's what they do. Oh, I'm a fighting game player, I just play fighting games. I'm a speedrunner, I just speedrun. And I don't want to hear anything else. Do you feel like that's kind of how people are getting, or am I off on that?
I think it is. People will stick to what they know. I mean, in general, right? I mean, that's just how I think humans are. So it can be hard to see.
Yes.
I guess it's hard for people to see something else and instantly see the appeal of that without spending the necessary time themselves to understand the merit of it. I think that's one of the main problems is people just need to actually expand their horizons, but people are content is the thing. They get, people get content with what they do, and that's fine. But I love to play different types of games and whatnot. And to me, like, I feel like I'm missing out if I'm not taking a look at what else there is out there. And I feel like, the speedrunning community they're very passionate about what they do. And a lot of them are very passionate about gaming in general, not just speedrunning. But they just, I don't know if it's a matter of like they don't have the time to commit or what. I'm not sure what it is, but it is kind of like how you describe. I don't know why exactly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are the Omni gamers out there and whatnot. And then it's like if you're going to be a super player, like you are pretty much playing that one game. So
yeah, very
you have
true.
to, it's just, you have to pick sometimes what you want to do and how you want to spend your time and all that. I mean, there's a lot to choose from and that type of thing.
Yes.
I want the speedrunning community to like discover shmups and like everyone starts playing shmups or something. Like I keep thinking like maybe it could happen, but maybe it will eventually.
Do you think it's just a matter of, it just comes down to the fact that they're auto-scrollers? Is it just, because I know speedrunners hate auto-scrollers, and maybe they just can't see past the fact that shmups auto-scroll?
That's quite the contrast there, actually, or comparison. Because I mean, yeah, like speedrunners hate auto-scrollers because they can't speedrun during them. So obviously there's the difference there, and it's like, I've even tried submitting shmups to GDQ, but only as like exhibitions, not really Julia speedruns. There's been speedruns of shmups in the GDQ, but none of them they're usually like Pocky and Rocky or
right, yeah.
Mega Drive shmup that was it was also kind of like Pocky and Rocky style where you walk around, you can advance the game. I think it's Twinkle Tail, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was Twinkle Tail. I think is the one I'm thinking of, but that was in an event, but that doesn't show the appeal of shmups necessarily,
right?
Because we're thinking of auto scroller type shmups, I guess.
Yeah,
It is really like the core type of shmup. Even though there are ones that you can, Outzone, for example, could be speedrun, maybe submit.
Yeah, or even kind of hybrid shmups. Something like Metal Slug 3 that has run and gun and then some shmup stages thrown in there.
Yeah, I'm loving a game right now, Cannon Spike on the Dreamcast. It's made by Psycho, but it's like a combination of a beat 'em up and a shmup.
That's awesome.
So fucking cool.
I'll have to check that out.
So great. So good.
I'm wondering, what I'm hoping might happen is that maybe speedrunners, I know it's all about time, but maybe they'll start opening their minds to playing games for score and not just for time. Because one of my favorite ADGQ videos that I watched was actually a Star Fox 64 run where he played it for score and not speed.
Yeah.
That was super cool. And I feel like it fit Star Fox a little more than speedrunning Star Fox, so to say, where you're just boosting through the game.
Yeah, they've done some exceptions like that, and I appreciate that they're trying to experiment and show people like play them in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, still Star Fox 64 and still auto scrolling.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know whose fault this all is Nintendo. They should have made a nostalgic shmup back in the day that everyone loved, and these days everyone knows and plays.
Yeah, if only.
Like a Star Fox shmup. That would have been cool. So the last thing I want to ask you about is your experience as a streamer. What's kind of your streaming schedule? Do you kind of just speedrun some days, play shmups some days? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, part of my schedule kind of revolves around the comfort of my hands.
Right. Sure.
Because speedrunning, some of the games I do, it's pretty stressful in the hands after I play them for a couple hours or a few hours straight. And then I can't really play those games anymore because I'm very aware of the comfort of my hands, and I don't want to injure myself. And I've seen people injure themselves.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
From excessive gaming and such. And I just really don't want that to happen to me. And so like a lot of times I'll do stuff on maybe speedrun stuff on like a controller, and then the next day I'll do a bunch of shmups or whatever on the arcade stick, because the arcade stick lets me keep playing without my hands getting all fucked up.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest reasons one of the biggest things I try to sell people on with the arcade sticks.
Yeah, hand health, dude.
Yeah, it's for your health, and not only that, but it's more fun to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, once you get familiar with them, they're just a lot of fun. So yeah, so I'll kind of like do stuff depending on the comfort of my hands. I'm not gonna continue playing if it's hurting my hands, because the more I get discomfort, the longer it takes for me to recover.
Oh yeah.
So I'm constantly kind of going day to day, and then gauging the comfort or the recovery of my wrists and stuff.
Oh, I know the feeling for sure.
Like right now, like my wrists are probably at like 80% or 90% capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe tomorrow they'll be ready to go for some more good gaming. So like, yeah, I mean, I'll typically do speedruns and shmups, and which is nice because I can do some crossbreeding there.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I like to do, and then I do casual stuff as well. I like everyone else. I like to check out different games and stuff too.
Oh yeah, I think that's always good to have, just for your own sanity, a variety of things to do. Okay, quick side tangent. You mentioned you play a lot of Dark Souls. I was wondering, have you ever played Nioh?
I haven't played Nioh yet.
That is an excellent freaking game, if you like Dark Souls.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet, yeah, I'll probably eventually pick it up, because as I understand, it's on PC now. I need to add that to my Steam wish list.
When I got it, I beat the game. It's a long game. It's like Dark Souls. And then I turned around and beat it again just because it was so much freaking fun.
Sweet, yeah. That's another vote for me to get that eventually.
So returning to the subject of arcade sticks, because I'm a huge arcade stick nut, for sure. Like, I'm super into them and mod them and build them and stuff. And I'm curious to hear, would you be open, as a speedrunner, to speedrunning on arcade stick? For like the older consoles, for like on NES and SNES and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I mean that could be a thing. It depends on the game, because some games, like for example Gimmick, which is a game I speedrun, that has a lot of left-right movements.
Yeah,
and so you need to be very quick on the action there. Whereas with the stick, you have the distance of the arcade stick throw.
Yeah.
So that's just not going to tend very well to that. But for example, Ghouls and Ghosts, which is an arcade game, that's very simple. Very simple. Like you're usually going right and whatnot. I mean, it's a platformer. You don't have momentum and everything. That's easier.
I actually speedrun Super Metroid on arcade stick. I might do a video of it just because it seems so insane because of all the crazy button combinations you need to hit and stuff. But
yeah, I know. I can see that. And then I know. Yeah, people do use stick for speedruns. Like I know there's a Symphony of the Night runner who used arcade stick.
Oh, that's cool.
And he was successful and whatnot. So I think people are doing that, and you can mod a stick to work on a SNES or NES or something like that. But I can go either way. Like I love the my favorite pads are the PlayStation 1 controller and the Super Famicom controller. Those are my two favorites. And then I use those a lot. Like I have a like a PS2 converter that I often use for various systems.
Yes.
Like I have a PS2 converter for Xbox 360 and Dreamcast.
Nice.
So it's super nice because Cannon Spike is it's like pretty much like a shmup action game, but it's like you have to be very fancy on the D-pad, and the Dreamcast D-pad is kind of
it's pretty shitty.
yeah, it's pretty iffy. So just to have that converter it's so nice. So I love the PlayStation Pad and the Super Famicom controller. And in fact, I use a converter for my NES speedruns. I use a Super Famicom controller converter.
Nice. So
I can use my Super Famicom controller because once again, like I'm watching out for the comfort of my hands. The NES controller, it's a small rectangle, and your hands kind of, depending on how big they are, it's just gonna be awkward. And I was getting so much discomfort from long sessions. And the Super Famicom controller, a bit more, it's just a great controller. It fits a bit better. It's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, more ergonomic too.
Buttons are nicer, and it's not like old. It's not like fucking ancient shit. Typically, I don't know. Like from NES to SNES, it's such a huge jump in quality with the controllers there.
It's crazy, the jump in quality between those two.
There are so many NES speedrunners though that they use NES controllers, and they're constantly like swapping out the pads, trying to get their NES controller just right. I'm like, I'm not gonna bother with that. I'm just gonna use Super Famicom controller. See you later.
I know what you're saying.
Because it's like there's purists too who will be like, only NES controller for NES speedruns and whatnot. And it's like, nah. It's still a Nintendo controller.
It's funny when you meet people who are purists about consoles. You know what I mean? It's like, well, they're not like arcade machines, they're consoles, but...
Yeah, NES is so nostalgic for people. I can definitely see that viewpoint of just like, use the NES controller on the NES to do an NES speedrun. It's like part of the whole shebang. But the thing is there are NES games that are super well made, and they're great, and they deserve to be controlled greatly too. So that's kind of my viewpoint there.
Another speedrun that you did that I thought was super cool to watch was your recent Contra 3 run at AGDQ, right?
Yeah, that was AGDQ, the last one, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It was Contra 3 low percent hard.
That's awesome, because I love running guns, and I feel like you can at least get them into AGDQ, if not a shmup.
Yeah, it's like, run and gun, kind of like shmup-esque. It's like, well, that's an interesting parallel, too, that's kind of worth mentioning, is that speedrunning actually turns out to be like shmups because you're forcing an auto-scroll in a lot of times. And
right.
Then,
yes.
Because you're forcing the auto-scroll, it essentially becomes a shmup because then you're reacting to every situation that approaches as it's forced to be approached. So that's why it's still baffling why shmups aren't as well regarded in the speedrunning community, because it's essentially a forced speedrun almost.
Yeah.
Where the techniques are being able to survive this part or get certain score at this part. You can just compare those to doing a certain technique in a speedrun. Yeah, that's why I'm really interested that it hasn't really caught on as much, but I'm not sure if that's just not apparent or if it's just the raw segregation of the genres. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I do wonder too if maybe in a way shmup's success or failure is too concrete for casual players or even casual speedrunners, because let's say I'm speedrunning Super Metroid and I screw up a section. Samus doesn't explode and, game over. It's just, oh crap, I lost a few seconds here or there. But in a shmup, you make a mistake and your ship explodes, and it's like, well, there you go, dude.
Yeah, that is a thing. People can have a hard time sometimes dealing with that. It's brutal.
any way to speedrun some traditional shmups, that would give them any kind of justice. And the only thing I could think of is when like DOJ just hypering all the bosses makes them, die faster, but makes the patterns harder. I can't think of anything.
Yeah, people do speedrun shmups, and it does come down to lag management and killing the bosses quickly and not dying. So
right.
To me, that's not enough to really make it compelling. Like I'd rather just go for 1cc's.
Yeah, I agree.
But that concept has been explored by some speedrunners, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are people who there's like a Gradius 1 leaderboard on the NES, for example, and I think the Gradius games have some popularity, but at the same time, it's just like, oh, I'm a speedrunner. Oh, I can clear this game. All right, there's my speedrun. So it's like, well, what's so great about that? But I guess if you get to the nitty gritty, it does become about like lag management and that type of stuff, and that is interesting.
Well, also, I wanted to ask you more about your streaming experience. So when you're streaming, what's your audience like as far as their tastes? Are they kind of open to whatever you play, or is there certain games they want to see?
Well, they're open because I will do what I want to do.
Right.
So I will subject my audience to speedruns and shmups, and because those are two things that are like. I mean, I've been getting back into shmups a bit more than. Well, I've actually been getting back into it a little bit more lately, but I mean, it doesn't grab a huge crowd still like shmups, but people do like to spectate shmups in general because it's like there's always something going on, and it's like if you do spectate it, you can watch casually or you can follow along and whatnot. Like I think it's a nice thing to spectate, but at the same time, like people have different preferences for what they want to watch, and I think sometimes.
Yeah, I just wonder. I don't know. I'm not a streamer, so I have no idea. But if you have a certain section of your audience where you pull out a shmup and they're like, peace, or if they're cool to sit down and watch the shmup or not, I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, people, they can be picky about what they want to watch with so many different streams and so many options. If I switch from a speedrun to a shmup, I'm definitely going to lose probably maybe a percentage of the viewers.
Right.
But there'll be some that will probably stick around too, and it's fine,
So what are your favorite aspects of streaming?
Getting to show off amazing games is always a nice reward. Of course, the interaction with the audience. I mean, I've made a lot of connections and friends and stuff through doing my own stream, and also being in the community. So it's just a great little it's just a great social aspect, and the speedrunning community, as I know it, has been very friendly to me, and it's been just a great community to be a part of. I can highly suggest getting into speedrunning because a lot of games have great communities. For example, like we got the Ghosts and Goblins Discord. We have all the G&G people, and everyone thinks we're great and whatnot because we're all nice and we'll teach each other and whatnot. So usually, especially the retro speedrunning communities for older games, you have it's kind of similar to shmups. Like you'll have a more mature type of person who gets in.
Right,
who gets into that type of stuff. And because of that, you have more sincere people, less trolls. In turn, you can establish better connections with people, and that's just nice to have.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to build that relationship and not just compete.
Right.
Necessarily.
I know what you're saying, because before I started this podcast, I was like a little nervous because I'd assumed, I'm just some Joe Schmo from Idaho, so it's like, who's this dude trying to start a shmup podcast? But the community has been super supportive, and it's like it's really awesome. I can't believe it.
I'm glad you're doing it. Part of the reason I do STG Weekly is, like I said, it only happens because for the most part the community exists, and so I grab people on, and you're grabbing people in the community, and it's us, we are the community, so we have to represent ourselves, at least in some regards. So if other people can start producing a little bit more content on shmups, I'm super happy. So I hope get some more listeners and stuff to the podcast and stuff, and get people a little bit happy and not just focus on the STG Weekly, or not my show, but STG Weekly in general, and they don't want it to be the only thing.
Right.
I want the community to grow in different respects. I don't need to do episodes every week for that to happen, but it's at least people know that the community is there, and you've already done 6 or 5 shows here, and you seem to be enjoying it, so.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and like I said, people are super supportive, and just the genre of shmups is so deep and interesting, and it definitely deserves a lot more content, I feel. I feel like there's some gaming genres that have a lot of content that I feel like shmups definitely deserve just as much.
Well, it's like you got your skill-based games, you got your shmups, you got your rhythm games, you got your puzzle games, fighters. It all really goes over. I mean, fighting games got the rebirth with Street Fighter 4. I don't know if shmups are ever gonna get that rebirth. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the genre is always gonna be around. The games they're just too pure. Like, they're too founded on original gameplay.
And you know what the nice thing about shmups is, and this is one huge appeal to me, is it's not like a fighting game where I got really invested in some fighting games like Virtua Fighter. I love that game so much in that series, but then it just dies, and that's it. If there's no community, you actually cannot play the game.
Yeah.
But shmups, the games aren't going anywhere. You can always play them.
That's true. That's very true.
So it's awesome, man, having you on the podcast. It's been really fun. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we head out?
If you don't use an arcade stick, you should get one, and you'll be happy.
Right. Okay, so do you have any specific recommendations for your favorite arcade sticks? Or...
I like Sanwa parts because they are the arcade standard in Japan. So I just like the idea that I can play something that's going to be the same as an arcade in Japan if I was to play on a cabinet or whatever.
Right.
Absolutely. That's a nice thing about playing stick is you can, bring your skills to a cabinet if you can find another one. But I like the Sanwa parts. I like Hori. Go Hori or go home for me. I love the Hori products, but I'm kind of getting sad because they're having their own like buttons and stuff in their sticks now. And they're kind of they're phasing out the Sanwa parts and the Saimitsu parts for their own parts.
They are.
Kind of make me sad because I think they did really well with the Sanwa and Saimitsu's past. But thankfully, there's tons of arcade sticks out there. They're always going to be around,
And you can replace the buttons.
In an Amazon warehouse or whatever, so. And replace the buttons,
you're still able... You're still able to get those parts. Like, I have a Hori Real Arcade Pro 4, I think it is. And I did not like those buttons compared to the Sanwa ones. So I swapped out the buttons. And then I swapped out the stick and put in a Sanwa stick.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Swap them out. This is great. With Sanwa buttons, like with my 2 sticks, I haven't needed to replace any of the buttons. And the sticks still feel like pretty much the first day I got them. Like, it's amazing. Such great quality.
Yeah, they're extremely well built.
Oh my god, because it's like Sanwa parts, they're built to last, and when it's just you playing, like, they're probably not gonna die unless you're really mashing those buttons, like, really mashing
really hammering away, or you rage and throw your stick.
My buddy broke a couple of Saimitsu buttons because he just was raging in his, 3 or 4 matches, and since the Saimitsu buttons are a little bit stiffer, he actually made one give out from fucking, getting pissed off. But not Sanwa.
I've seen people do that.
Pretty much take the damage. Oh my god.
Have you ever seen someone throw a stick before?
Yeah. I remember not in person. Actually, maybe in person, but I do remember. I followed Team Spooky a lot through the years, and they had Sanford Kelly throw his stick in NYC Next Level. Like, he threw his stick after some match or something, and it fucked it up, and that's just later on he's just like, I'm sorry guys, I lost it.
Raging.
I lost it back there. I behaved inappropriately.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much for being on the episode.
Yeah, it was great chatting about this stuff. I feel like we got to talk about and illuminate some topics that are kind of on the cusp of kind of gaming nowadays. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it can reach someone here.
And I did do a promotion with the Frame Savers. There's a speedrunning podcast, so it's not quite out yet, but that's
great.
why this has been on the forefront of my head of, was this promotion well spent? Will these speedrunners check out the podcast?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
I know the Frame Savers. Yeah, indeed. And in fact, I know the people behind it, and I've met them in person.
Oh, that's cool. They were really cool when I reached out to them to do the promotion. So
great. Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. And even them, like, they don't. I don't think they get a ton of listeners, but like yourself and myself, they do it out of the love for speedrunning or the genre, and that's really what it's all about. And the people that they are reaching, they're enriching. They are becoming enriched, and I think that's pretty valuable, even if it's not reaching everyone.
And it's one of those things where these types of content, you might not get it right away, but it's always there for the future when maybe there's some kind of boom and people get interested and go back.
Well, there are the big YouTubers who talk about shmups, and they will talk about them, but they won't talk about them in depth. And so if people want to look into shmups or look into speedrunning, they'll find those resources or shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Then that's the next step. So I think that's I'm just happy that I have we have the 140 episodes or whatever of STG Weekly there. And people can look through that, find a game that maybe they are more interested in, and then check out the episode, and maybe they'll be like, "Holy shit! I didn't know you could do it. I didn't know you could do that." Or what this guy's fucking crazy. I didn't know people. I thought people just cheated or whatever.
That's what happened with me with Shmups. I got into it a few years ago and checked out STG Weekly, watched a ton of episodes, and learned a ton about the games. I actually didn't even realize there were 2 loops of Dononpachi until the episode. I was like, holy crap, there's another loop.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, that's funny. That's cool.
Yeah.
I do hear that from people sometimes, and it's pretty humbling.
Yeah, it's been awesome to have you on the podcast, and I think this is going to turn out to be an excellent episode, and thank you so much.